WrestleTalk.
Be kind to each other in the comments.
She's back. She's back once again like a renegade master. Eva Marie was announced to be returning on this edition of Raw in a coming soon vignette for the Evolution, which feels like a real slap in the face of like Mickie James and Maria Kanellis Bennett, who have been talking about how like they were told backstage that there will never be an Evolution 2 because the first one never drew any money, which is technically a lie. I am Luca, and this is your Jam That Champion, El Fakador Laurie Blake. Welcome to the Raw review. And yeah, let's kick things off by talking about Eva Marie. Now, this should come as a surprise to absolutely no one, really, because it was reported late last year that she'd re-signed with the company. And it was then reported in December that she was filming vignettes, presumably the vignettes that we got on this show. So really, it was just a matter of time before she came back. And there's been lots of reports of Johnny Ace. Now he is back in sort of his talent relations position of power. He likes Divas era wrestling within WWE, and that's the sort of thing he would like to kind of go back to. So, yeah, like we're in a situation where Mickie James, Chelsea Green, Peyton Royce, Billie Kay all got their marching orders, and Eva Marie, who traditionally and historically has not been great in WWE. Pretty good at getting heat, because actually I quite enjoyed her run in NXT. Is back up onto the main roster in a role that is, well, we don't really know what role it is. But I mean, what are your opening thoughts on this situation?
Luke, there are only a few things after the controversy around AEW last week, in which I said some negative things about AEW. I've decided that what wrestling fans want from me and from their critics of wrestling is for them only to be positive. So there are only a few things on this Raw that I'm actually willing to talk about. Let me just go through my notes. RKBro.
Yeah.
That's it. So yeah, come back to me then. No, okay. Let's go. Look, I think this is a thing, right? Like my initial thoughts in this are like, this is piss poor timing by WWE to do this. Like, they've got to be aware of the optics of this, because yeah, they've just let go a bunch of prominent women from their company, especially Mickie James, I think, who is by all accounts a legend in WWE, and then they bring back Eva Marie, who, you know, has had the kind of anti-women's evolution, anti-good women's wrestling character before. Like, you know, she kind of was, that was kind of what she was doing in NXT to a degree. Yeah. When you had all these like brilliant women starting to main event the shows, like Eva Marie was coming through and being like, that's not what people want to see from the women. And that's kind of what the angle they were pushing. So like, and I think, like you said in the news as well, like they've tried, if this is the gimmick that they're going for, sexy woman, which is, it's not a gimmick. They've tried this with multiple people. And funnily enough, they seem to drop it around about the time that whoever that person is starts to ask to be allowed to do matches, like proper matches. Like when Carmella was like, you need to put more women on this show, or I want to be involved in this, blah, 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 blah. Liv Morgan, the same thing. Like they drop it as quickly as they sort of fire it up. And I don't think it's going to sustain very long if they have nothing more to it than she's going to be lounging around on Lamborghinis going, do I have your attention yet? Or was it Ferrari? I don't know. What kind of car was it? It was a nice car.
A nice car that had doors.
It's not a Mini Cooper though, is it? So I'm not interested.
Yeah. So if you haven't seen the show, Eva Marie was kind of like stretched out over this nice car with its wheels. And yeah, she was talking about how there's going to be this evolution. Have I got your attention yet? Like it is. And then there's like this, the evolution is coming soon. And it is just like, it's Emelina. It was Eva Marie's gimmick for a little bit when they did the brand split. She was on SmackDown and she had like they would do this big long intro for her, and then she would come out and then not actually have a match. She would just make an entrance and then leave. Like that was a bit of a gimmick before she got released. So they tried it with, then they moved on to Liv Morgan. And Liv Morgan was going to be a sexy lady that takes baths. And then they brought her back early and made her Lana's lover, and then dropped that very quickly. Just went back to being in the Riot Squad. And then they tried it with Carmella. And Carmella was like the closest that this has ever come to actually landing. She was a sexy lady that had a sommelier, and they put her into title matches with Sasha Banks, made her lose a bunch, and then was like, done with that now. Go back to just being Carmella. And if you're going to make the argument, it's like they didn't drop the gimmick. Carmella herself has said in the Bella's Twins podcast, yeah, we've dropped that gimmick now. I'm just back to being Carmella. They wanted me to be a sexy lady, did that for a bit. I now wanted to do something different, which is what she was going to be doing with Billie Kay before Billie Kay got released. So this is now our 5th attempt to get this gimmick, and it's because Vince has just got gimmicks that he loves. He loves the bullied giants, or the idiot savant, and like, you know, the giant that's got like the heart of gold, or, you know, whatever it was, the vintner that Eric Rowan was going to be for a little while, and you can solve a Rubik's Cube dead quick. And his other favorite gimmick, and apparently it's a favorite gimmick of Kevin Dunn as well, is the sexy lady. The sexy lady whose gimmick is, I am a sexy lady, and I do a sexy lady thing. And that's the gimmick we've now got for Eva Marie. I am really hoping, though, that this is the Eva Marie that we had in NXT, which was just the, like you were talking about there, it's the anti-women's evolution kind of shtick. It's just like, no, Divas Wrestling is when this company was at its best. And we need a return to Divas Wrestling. Like, even like, imagine if she brings back the Divas Championship, the self-proclaimed Divas Champion. Like, and do it as this really great heel run of like just trying to like work the fans and anger them. I think that could be a lot of fun. Problem is that as you said, like, it's poor timing. There's lots of optics around this. They're just like, well, you released a great wrestler and a great character in Chelsea Green. You released one of your best you've ever had in Mickie James. You've released 2 incredibly charismatic people in Billie Kay and Peyton Royce. 4 people that actually could have done this gimmick and probably would have done it better.
And I think that's like, you know, I completely agree that, like, in the right circumstances, this gimmick can work. And like, yeah, I think the idea of bringing back the Divas Championship with Eva Marie self-proclaiming herself again is genius. Really, and if she's, you know, if it's, you know, coming out of WrestleMania Backlash, if it's Rhea or Asuka or Charlotte, Eva Marie's a great foil to all 3 of them, because they are all non-archetypical diva wrestlers in WWE's eyes. Like, they all embody like the kind of evolution that WWE's undergone. So I think that there is something really interesting in that. But like you said, it comes a week after they've let a bunch of people go, being like, "I wouldn't have anything for you." And it's like,
yeah,
you had this coming up, right? Like, there is just, yeah, I don't know.
There's also going to be that problem of the bell rings.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I just think, you know, that's the thing, is like, you've got that, if you want to pay off on this idea, there has to be a match at some point. And the reason the Carmella stuff so nearly worked was because Carmella's good in the ring, and the matches with Sasha Banks were good, but they immediately put her into a championship picture, and her getting beaten by Sasha Banks doesn't do much for her, like, everyone's esteem of her, especially WWE, for their own reasons. They're like, well, you didn't win. And it's like, well, you said I wasn't allowed to win. What are you talking about? This is just what happens all the time. It baffles me that this is what we're doing, like, a week out, or like, you know, 2 weeks out from people being released. Like, it is so strange. That's
exactly it. Yeah. Like, and I think that those 4 talents actually held something that, in fact, like, all of the qualities I think they have got, they wanted Eva Marie for this character, you had in those 4 there that you could have done this with. So I'm trying to play the not the optimist card, because Raw has driven away all of my optimism, but I'm trying to play the let's not just dunk on this immediately. I'm going to see how this plays out. As I said, I quite liked her NXT run. And if this is like her NXT run, then we could be in for some really fun TV. And Raw is lacking in fun TV. So at least there could be something there. However, there is going to be that cynical part of my brain that is just like, oh, we've been down this road before. And you know what? We'll get to it later on when we get to Mansoor. Because like, there is just going to be the cynical part, like, as WWE has like just systematically driven this into me, to just look at this and be like, I have a fear that this is going to be pants.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. That thing is like, you know, what Raw is in desperate need of is fun TV. But what I will say is, it's not like they're not trying to find fun TV. Like, they're throwing Rotten Tomatoes at people. They're doing sing-alongs. They're doing they are throwing everything at it from their imagination perspective of like, these are all the things we can think of that are fun. So like, maybe their fingers are so far off the pulse that it's like, it's unbelievable. So yeah, I think that's the thing, is like, that really cynical bit of me goes like, this is what they think is good TV. What they think they're doing currently is good. They think is good TV. So there's no way that this will be good. This is going to be, it's going to be a massive accident if this is good, because that's what Raw tells me.
Well, let's dive into your Hyperchat, see what you've got to say about the show. Please get in touch. It is WrestleTalk.com/support. Anthony Velasquez said, I hope Eva Marie has worked on her stuff in ring while she was away, because I'm very sorry to say that I'm not sure what she brings that other female talent on the roster probably already have, including the talent recently released, which is what we were just discussing then. Bacon Rasher says, hi lads. Oh wow, the absolute balls of this company to call it Evolution. Can't wrestle, can't talk, can't act. Everyone that was let go can do at least one of them. Welcome to the new Divas Evolution. Thanks for watching so we don't have to. Jam that jam. Greg Murphy, on the other hand, I don't get the outrage about Eva Marie. Outside of Samoa Joe, was there really any drawing power in anyone else released? Eva Marie may be rubbish, but at least people will tune in and see how bad she's doing. She even made it to the title of your review. To your point there, Greg, she was the title of our review. That's because it was the most newsworthy thing that happened on this show, because the show was the same show that was last week, and it was the week before that, and it was the week before that, going back to bloody February.
And we'll be at Backlash.
And probably will be after Backlash. The other point of that, like, people will tune in to see how bad she's doing. I don't think that's going to happen, because people aren't tuning into this show to see how good people are doing, let alone how bad people are doing.
As far as we've been told by WWE, people aren't watching the women.
Well, yeah,
so,
exactly.
You know,
yeah,
like,
exactly.
that's what's this going to do to fix that? Yeah.
And to your third point about outside of Smojo, was there anyone released that had drawing power? If WWE had released Becky Lynch in 2017, someone might have made that argument then as well, because at that point, Becky Lynch was doing absolutely diddly dick on the main roster. And you're probably going to look to be like, well, what did we really lose in Becky Lynch? She hadn't actually drawn anything up until this point. Yeah, you know, so really there's no harm lost there. Turns out forward a couple of years later, or even just 1 year later, she's the hottest thing in the company, and she's headlining WrestleMania. She's like creating an actual change and genuinely becoming the top merch seller and becoming a genuine draw for the company. If you give people a chance and an opportunity, they might have become draws. We don't know if Peyton Royce and Billie Kay could have become a draw because they never got given the chance. We don't know if Chelsea Green could have become a draw. They were never given a chance to do so.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the other thing with this gimmick is that they've given it to lots of people, and clearly there is a time limit on how long people will put up with the gimmick for when they're given it. And clearly there's an expectation of like, I will come out and I will do your titillation gimmick in return for eventually being given some good matches to do. It's a kind of tit for tat thing. Like, you know, like but they never seem to pay off on the bit where the person who's put themselves through this kind of like, I'm going to do this gimmick, then I get to have the good matches, and they never really pay off on the good matches. They kind of do Carmella, but not really. And then I just think Eva Marie's just going to be the next in a long line of people who said, I'll do the gimmick for the promise of, prominence. Where does that lead us? It leads us into 2 months of people going, well, I don't like that. And then lo and behold, she's a different character.
Could just be as well just a Total Divas thing. I don't know if Total Divas is still on the air or whatever, so maybe it's just a case. Is Total Divas still on the air? Do people still watch that show? Does that still get made?
I think so. I don't think it's been... Doesn't it relies heavily on people being able to meet up with each other. So I don't know if that's...
well, maybe, yeah.
I don't know if that's been happening for a while, but...
Luke William Johnson said, I'm not a fan of hers, but Eva Marie has been employed since last year, so not actually taken anyone's place. And it's not her fault that this is her gimmick. She just wants a job. Like, Luke, as always, nothing that we ever say on the show is an indictment of the people themselves. Like me, later on, when I talk about how the Mansoor thing isn't very good, that's not Mansoor's fault. It's not Sheamus's fault. It's not Umberto's fault. It's the people in charge. And I think that we are quite, we don't say that outright every single time, because I think it's very implicit that is what we mean when we say that this isn't great. And I would never say that it's Braun's fault or it's Drew's fault. Just say that it's the creative's fault.
And also, if she was employed last year, that means they chose to play this video this week, and not in a month's time, or not in 2 months' time, when maybe the sting for some people is a little bit lessened. This is all, like we said, it's optics and PR, right? And it's a poor decision by the company to kind of draw this kind of heat. at this moment, because some people just got all their stuff in a bin bag, and she's got what chat is saying is a Ferrari.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, like Mickie James talked about how like she was told backstage that women's wrestling does not draw in WWE, and like we'll never do another Evolution 2. We had Maria Kanellis-Bennett on this podcast on Friday, and she said that, she goes, yeah, I was told we will never do an Evolution 2 because we don't think that women's wrestling is the draw that a lot of people think that it is. So I think it is kind of like, it is that poor optics, because there is that. And like Carmella was on the Bella Twins podcast being like, dude, I watch this show and I never see women's wrestling, and I think that sucks. And we'll have these last two comments from Homestar Fan before we get in, that says, I keep calling him Homestar Fan, it's Homestar Fan. The whole point of women's wrestling not being a draw is just ridiculous. Just look at how many Joshi promotions are in Japan. The real truth is WWE's women's wrestling doesn't draw because WWE doesn't care. The real problem in the women's division, in my opinion, is that WWE only care about making history and showing how progressive they are, that they forget the real way to make a division is interesting characters and storylines. And that, I think, is an excellent point to end off our hyper chats on. Because, we had all those comments from Mickie James and Carmella and Maria Kanellis on our podcast, and then Stephanie McMahon over the weekend. It's almost as if like nothing had happened, just reposted that Yahoo Sports thing being like, if only there was more focus being put onto women's sports as there were men's. And everyone's like, dude, you can do that. You have the option to change that, and you're choosing not to.
You're a tastemaker, and that's the thing. Is like look at NXT. Like NXT is a WWE product, and through a prolonged series, like a prolonged exposure of the women in that division of WWE, they now have one of the best women's divisions in the world. And it is genuinely not, it's not even flagged up when they main event a show or when they main event a pay-per-view, in the same way of like, look, we're having the women main event this thing. Wow. Like, it's just part and parcel of watching NXT, because that has happened consistently for ages.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Right. Well, let's get into the show itself. It was like broadly the same show that we've been getting for weeks on end now. I think it was probably better than some of the previous weeks that we have had, because some weeks have been really, really awful. And there was a lot, there was some bad stuff in the show. So we started off with MVP meeting with Adam Pearce, Sonya Deville. I guess Sonya Deville is just part of Raw now. I think that she made her debut as part of the Raw, not the Raw team, but like she's been a general manager, but not a general manager, with Adam Pearce over on SmackDown. Now she's just on Raw. She's wearing red suits, and Braun won a coin toss to face Bobby Lashley in a match tonight, and they all stood in a row. The staging of this was horrendous, because you had MVP chatting with Adam Pearce and Sonya Deville in an office, and then from one side of the room walks in Drew McIntyre as if he's just walked into the office to be like, whoa, what's going on here? We're signing this with a coin flip. And then from the other side of frame walks in as if he'd come through a different door into the office.
Smash through the wheel.
Braun's here. The Kool-Aid guy. Braun. I'm a train. And Braun walks in the shot, and this company keeps saying, we don't make wrestling shows, we make movies. You make the worst movies. You cannot stage anything to save your life. This is the easiest thing to get right in a wrestling company, is to just do staging. Just take a step back and we'll be like, is this how a normal person would act? Does this staging make sense? But they don't think about that, because at the end of the day, they don't care. And they don't care if it makes sense or not. It's an imaginary world of bollocks. So it doesn't make sense. But it winds me up that the staging of this show is so poor.
Well, I think it's the thing, isn't it? Because like WWE say they make movies, but they wrote the book on how a wrestling TV show is done. Like, all the kind of tropes of wrestling TV evolved alongside WWE. So like all of this is how you cut a promo on TV, and this is how people stand, and this is how people talk to each other, and this is how all the people in backstage interact. They made that all up. Like it's not even like a sort of tradition of wrestling, really, is it? It's like, a lot of wrestling, I think a lot of wrestling programs have adopted that mannerism and that style through NWA and WCW and all that kind of stuff. But like, it's just baffling that this is the best they could do. Also, because this is to book who goes first in one of 3 matches that are going to feature these 3 guys for the next 2 weeks to build to. So Bobby Lashley's going to take on Braun Strowman, to then take on Drew McIntyre, to then take on both of them less than 7 days later. It's just balmy. Like it.
Oh yeah.
How does that? When it's like you got to keep it special. You got to keep the guys away from each other. You got to like build the hype or whatever. Why? What's that? Because this is also replaying bloody WrestleMania for two of them.
I was going to say, like, it's nothing gets me more excited for a match on pay-per-view than seeing 1/3 of that match get beaten by one of the other thirds of the match in a singles bout. Like, it doesn't. Yeah, well, we'll get to that main event when we get to it.
This is also as you pointed out in the review today, this is also the first of 5 MVP promos?
Four promos on this show. Yeah.
And the match, then the match between Lashley and Braun at the end of the show goes 10 minutes.
Yeah,
like with 10 minutes with entrances, some of which could have cut out from one seeing the promo of Braun and Lashley smashing through the stage that time, which must have been 7 times throughout the show, and MVP talking backstage about the match that was going to happen later in the show, and the match next week, and the match on the Sunday of next week. Also 5 minutes of what are we doing? What are we bloody doing?
The most maddening thing about the MVP promos is he said nothing new in any of them. Like at the very start of the show, he made his point, and then all 3 of the other promos they cut were the same promo. Sorry, something just flown into my eye there. But it was the same promo that like over and over again. So like nothing was adding. We were just wasting time. And it always reminds me of like when my wife doesn't like watching wrestling. And one of the reasons why she doesn't like watching wrestling is because whenever I've shown her things, like, so she wanted to see Ronda Rousey's debut at the Royal Rumble, and she wanted to see The Fiend at SummerSlam. Because, like, I was talking about, like, oh, Ronda Rousey's debut, she knew who that was, so she wanted to see that. And I was like, The Fiend is the coolest thing. And she was like, I really want to see what this is. She watched both those clips, and she was like, I cannot watch this show because this production is horrendous. And, like, it might just be because she works within TV, but she was like, these people don't know how to make a TV show. And it is butt ugly to watch. And, yeah, she's not wrong. It is not a very good put together TV show. Something I did like though, AJ and Omos finally made it to TV with the belts, with the tag team belts, to have a match with the New Day, who they beat at WrestleMania. They beat them again here. They're a fine little tag match. I think it's smart to keep protecting Omos in the way that they are. It just does very little for them to just beat the New Day again. And also, like, we're supposed to be past this whole antiquated rematch clause lark.
Yeah, and it does. I think this partnership does. Like, AJ is ultimately wasted here in the whatever it's. I don't. They need a team name, the Phenomenos or whatever it's going to be called. Like,
that's good.
Like something like that would work. But yeah, I think they're pushing Omos really hard, and like obviously the WrestleMania match was insulated so much by pure charisma of the New Day and AJ just throwing themselves around, setting up a storm to make Omos look like a monster. And that's fine, but how long is that going to sustain realistically? So I'll be interested to see where they go from here, because yeah, like you said, this is a rematch from WrestleMania. This is the 19th rematch on this particular edition of Raw, of which we are now just have like, I don't, Attitude Era to a degree was 3 big names smashing into each other over and over again. And like a lot of the divisions were that same thing. The tag division for the Attitude Era was Edge and Christian, the Hardy Boys and the Dudley Boys, repeatedly revolving around each other over the tag team titles. And I don't know if that's what WWE are trying to recreate, or they just are unimaginative to bring other people in, but like they are not being successful by just having the same people go at it again and again and again, because they give people too much promo time as well. Like this had a 5-minute promo at the start of the match. And there's nothing new to say, is there? When like the New Day, like we've won a lot of championships and we work really hard, and you've not been here. Blah blah. Like we go over the same ground over and over again. It's maddening.
It would have been so much better.
I can't believe you have to watch this every single week.
Oh my god, it's the worst. It would have made so much more sense to put Shelton and Cedric in this position. Like, so, they'd be like, we're former tag team champions. We want a match against you right now. You could give them a longer match, And then
Yes.
Cedric and Shelton lose that match. And then you can have Cedric cut that promo on Shelton, as opposed to later on in the show, not even giving them an entrance against the Lucha House Party, who also didn't get an entrance, who have a match that started in the commercial break that they lose in 30 seconds. Like, it would have made, like, and then the breakup just happens out. So why not do the breakup here in this match? It would have been a new matchup. It would have been something different for AJ and Omos. It would have been something different for Cedric and Shelton. And I think, like, for me, on paper, that is a much better use of TV time.
Yeah, I mean, what getting more wrestling on your wrestling show where they can actually do something imaginative with the time that they're given should be like the number one operating thing here. And they spend so much time on Raw talking, as evidenced by 4 MVP backstage segments where he said the same stuff, that they just don't have any time. Like, you know, this match was fine, but it didn't do anything new. It didn't have a real story around it either. The story was the same as the WrestleMania one, which is when Omos gets in, he's gonna maul you. And that's a fun story, but I'd like to see him maul someone else because he's already mauled these two guys. So, you know.
Exactly, yeah. We appear to be getting a feud between Adam Pearce and Sonya Deville. As I said, Sonya Deville is now on Raw. Got the promo for Eva Marie's return. Then we got a second MVP promo. Got a recap of Miz and all of his bollocks last week. And then Elias and Ryker, to kind of follow up on this, found some, like, they also had some tomatoes. And they were going to throw them at the New Day. And I actually quite like this because they were going to throw them at the New Day. And then they get up and they start throwing them like they're snowballs. And they throw like loads of them. And then they look a bit worried. And the camera pans round. And it turns out they threw them at Randy Orton. And Randy Orton stands there being like, I can't believe you just threw some tomatoes at me. And Matt Riddle just zooms past them and just goes like, hey, Randy.
He's like a cartoon character. It's brilliant.
Yeah.
I actually liked that.
Mm-hmm.
I actually enjoyed the, like, Randy Orton was the right person to throw a bunch of tomatoes at, because I would be terrified if I'd throw them at Randy Orton. Having Matt Riddle skate past and be like, hey, Randy, like, it comes from nowhere, and it's one of those like jarring bits of comedy, but I really, really enjoyed that. The tomatoes thing from last week was god awful.
I know, but Morrison got hit in the penis, so it was hilarious.
He did get hit in the penis, and Miz got one in the face as well, which they scrubbed that footage for. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
But this is what we're setting up matches over.
We then got Charlotte Flair versus Dana Brooke. Wasn't really much of a match. Like, Brooke got a bit of a flurry of moves in, but Flair chop blocked her and put in the figure 8 for the win. And then afterwards, Sonya Deville comes out for this promo, and Charlotte Flair cuts the usual promo that she does. It's good stuff because I really like this character that she's got. And she wants to be added into the triple threat, or she wants to make the match a triple threat at WrestleMania's Backlash. And Sonya Deville, in so many words, was like, well, the men's is a triple threat, so I guess it just makes sense that this is a triple threat as well. You're in the match now.
Yeah, so I wonder whether they, like, I'm wondering, because obviously, like, this was, after this, they had another Sonya and Pierce bit backstage where he was like, you're really overstepping now. Because, again, we can only have the same promos 3 times. But, yeah, like, I wonder if this is going to lead to some sort of corruption thing with Deville, whether she's, like, running some sort of backhand, like, yeah, fine, I'm going to put you over, Charlotte, and I'm going to, like, basically take bribes to give people the matches. Because, yeah, it does feel like a very flippant reason, but I feel like some of the seeds have been planted to make it something bigger if WWE choose to. And I'd really hope that they do, because I think Sonya Deville is great, and they should be giving her a much bigger role. And she would work it really well as a heel character who's, like, you know, actually on the take or something like that, where she's, you know, she's putting people into matches, because I think that it kind of works with the Charlotte gimmick here of, like, well, I must have this opportunity because of Charlotte Flair, like, be fair to Flair.
Yeah.
I like all that stuff. Like, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, it's really good. But, like, then you get back to the WWE's terrible staging of things, because they're all standing in a row. And because Ripley and Asuka also come out to have a chat. And Ripley in her promo was just like, look, I'm not worried about, like, if you want to be out of the title match, that's fine, blah, 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 blah. And then Asuka comes out and she cuts her promo and they stand in a row. And then, because the promo bits are now done, and it's just like, well, we need Charlotte Flair to attack Rhea Ripley. Well, how can we get her to attack Rhea Ripley? We'll just work backwards from there. Well, what if Rhea Ripley gets into the face of Sonya Deville? Why? Doesn't matter. We've already got to that bit. So, like, for no reason whatsoever, Rhea Ripley starts going after Sonya Deville and getting into her face. So then her back is turned to Charlotte Flair, so Charlotte Flair can attack her and ask her to stand tall. And you're just looking at like, well, why? But why did you go after Sonya Deville? Like, you had no impetus to do so when you came out for your promo. All of a sudden, it's just like, well, now is my time to go after you to set up the next thing. So it made her look dumb. And like, it just was a really stupid ending to the segment.
Because, Luke, Asuka's not winning the match at WrestleMania Backlash, so Asuka has to stand tall here, and then via wrestling logic, we need to do all this other stuff to make that. Yeah, no, I completely agree. Like, I actually quite liked the sort of the promo battle. I thought Rhea was really good. Said a bunch of really like the whole kind of like Charlotte salty about not being included thing. I really like about Rhea's character. Asuka had everyone creasing. With her sort of crybaby thing that she did. That was like Charlotte was legitimately trying to stifle a laugh, and Rhea was also smiling a fair bit. I thought this was really good, and I don't necessarily mind. It's an awareness thing, right? Like the adding Charlotte to a match that she's not involved in is memed content now. Like it is a meme to add Charlotte Flair to something. So if WWE choose to do it knowingly with a bit of a wink and a nod, that's fine by me, because Charlotte's a really bloody good wrestler and she'll make the match really good. But yeah, it has to be done with that kind of knowing glance. And I think this achieved that. I'm just hoping that they do something more with the Sonya Deville thing, because we can't, like, you don't want the general manager just running around making matches for no apparent reason.
Yeah, I really like
just because the men are doing it. Like, you know, that doesn't make any sense.
I really like this Charlotte Flair character. I really like this role that she's in. I think this could be like the best we've seen Charlotte in a while, because like they're allowing her to be her. And I think that is like the best. Like that's a character she's very comfortable playing, and quite clearly because her promos are now are really, really good. So I love the fact that she's added to the title match, particularly as you say, if there is going to be this thing with Sonya Deville, which there quite clearly appears to be so. So I'm intrigued to see where this is going to go. Backstage, Alberto Carrillo was going to cut a promo with Caleb Braxton, but he gets attacked by Sheamus. And then John Morrison comes out for a match, and I'm like, don't be against Damien Priest. Do not be against Damien Priest. And bloody lo and behold, it's Damien Priest. Before we get to that, though, Damien Priest wins. Who cares? Like, Damien Priest beats John Morrison again. I've said my piece on this. He beat him again, and then he stares down The Miz. I hope this feud doesn't continue. But, like, I think the easiest job in WWE is to write a promo for The Miz. And the reason for that is because one promo was written 10 years ago, and we've just been using that same promo ever since. Because you'll never guess what he said. He came out and he said, I'm a former WWE champion. I main evented WrestleMania. I'm a first ballot Hall of Famer. I've got a reality TV show. Like, it's the exact same content every single week. I didn't even realize he cut a promo until I was reading a review of the show and saw that he did. And I was like, did he? Because I didn't mention it in my review. And the reason why I didn't mention it is I didn't even notice he'd cut a promo. Because you don't need to listen or pay attention, because it's the same promo he cuts every single week.
I think this is the thing, like, you know, when people have a go at Randy Orton for being on cruise control during his matches and just getting his 5 things in and moving on, The Miz does that for promos. This is The Miz's promo style. Like, and you know, he's very good at promos, but something like this is literally second nature to him because he has said it so many times. The one interesting thing that I noticed about this promo, though, is that there were a couple of moments where Morrison's trying to get involved in what The Miz is saying, and The Miz turns it around to be about him, right? And he cuts Morrison off multiple times. And then at the end of the match, The Miz is the one distracting the ref when Morrison gets the roll-up. And had they obviously not done the roll-up slightly wrong, it would have looked like he'd got a visual 3 without, like, you know, without actually being counted. Instead, Priest kicked out at like 1 on the referee's second count. So it wasn't quite, but that's what they were definitely going for here. So I wonder if they're splitting up Miz and Morrison at some point.
I think they are. Yeah, they've been teasing this for
and
a
I think that's
while,
I think that's the right thing to do. Right? Yeah,
I agree. Like, I think that they are much better off apart from each other. Granted, as well, like WWE is in the mode of splitting up tag teams at the moment, so like it just makes sense to split up another one.
They must have another one in the works. Also, in this promo that you missed, in the promo that you missed, Luke, Morrison said the line, "Forgiveness ain't good for dripness." What does it mean?
Well, he's
and
Johnny
why
Drip
is it
Drip.
happening? Yeah, I know he's Johnny Drip Drip. So good they named it twice. But we can't just be putting the word drip in every word now. That it doesn't work. That's not even how puns work, you blithering idiots. Like,
yeah, the match was like, it's John Morrison versus Damien Priest. I've seen it. Like, I've seen Damien Priest beat him. This Damien Priest main roster call-up is an unmitigated disaster, and like through no fault of anyone's but the lazy creative that is on display here. Like, Damien Priest should have moved on from Miz and Morrison after WrestleMania. And here we are, nearly 4 weeks. In fact, I think we are 4 weeks after WrestleMania, still feuding with them for no reason. There's legitimately no reason why these two are still having matches together. And it's not
I think they want to keep on the boilerplate just in case.
But it's not keeping on a boiler. Yeah, but
he'll come back. He'll come back, Luke. Wait, he'll come back anytime. Sometime soon, he'll come back. We'll keep Priest warm. He'll come back. Bad Bunny, come back. Hang out with your friend Damien.
It's still good. It's still good.
Exactly. That's exactly what they're doing.
Yeah, like this is just like he is spinning his wheels now. Just spinning his wheels. And it's just like, and he's destined to become another ballsed NXT call-up, which didn't fill me with confidence then when Mansoor was in the next segment. Because I was like, oh my God, Mansoor's been called up to the main roster. But like there was this glimmer of hope because Mansoor's signing this contract. Clearly WWE love him. So he's signing this contract and Sheamus walks in. And I'm like, oh my God, are you going to go into a feud with Sheamus over the US title? What a way to establish someone. You don't have to win the title, but certainly what a way to establish it as someone on the main roster. And he kind of accepts the open challenge from Sheamus. And I'm like, okay, maybe we're going to get onto something here. We'll get to it in a moment, but it doesn't quite work out that way. But, we'll talk about Mansoor in detail when we get to the match. MVP got his third promo of the night. And then we got, as we said, Cedric and Shelton versus Lucha House Party. The match was so unimportant, and all the rest of it was so important. The majority of this happened in the commercial break. Lucha House Party won, and then Cedric split up with Shelton after the match.
I thought Cedric's promo was good.
Great.
I thought his splitting up with Shelton shtick was really good, and it's interesting. But they're just going to have these two feud now over this because it's the only thing they can imagine to do with Cedric Alexander and Shelton Benjamin now they're not the Raw Tag Team Champions and they're not in the Hurt Business. It's just like, well, you can just have filler matches against each other. Fine. It's not. It doesn't have any stakes because they were kicked out. They were basically kicked out 1 week for no reason. Like, this escalation to the point where Cedric Alexander is shouting at Shelton Benjamin, being like, "You're dragging me down. I'm in the prime of my life." They didn't kick us out. They kicked you out. You're the weak link. All of this stuff. Like, I refuse to waste another second of my life keeping you alive. This all is really good stuff that needed a bigger reason why they were kicked out of the Hurt Business, more build into it, and definitely needed to come out of a match that was more important than Lince Dorado and Gran Metalik. God bless them. I like Lince Dorado. I really like Gran Metalik. I think they're fantastic. But what does this do? What does this like? What
yeah, exactly.
It immediately undervalues the feud from Cedric and Shelton because it's over something what is actually now really petty in terms of like wrestling, because it's like, who are Lucha House Party to even be bothered about losing to, really? I know it's a real like gut punch. It's a shame we lost to them kind of thing, but everything feels like it's over something stupid in Raw. It's either over someone's thrown some tomatoes or Lucha House Party did this because you were looking in the wrong direction or, someone painted my car, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, they kind of like it's been very muddled because like they kind of teased a split last year when they were the tag team champions because Shelton was like the overly exaggerated one, and like you could have run with kind of that story, but they didn't. So they stopped that, which I think was great because we don't want to break up the Hurt Business. And then they broke up the Hurt Business anyway, and then they've just been losing matches ever since. And then they lose here, and now the team is broken up. Like, yeah, they'll have a match. They'll probably have a couple of matches, maybe. But then what's next for them after that? I just think that they're just going to get lost in the shuffle more than they already are currently.
This is the slow decline of interest of WWE, where they didn't want to have to work out what to do with two people who are part of a faction with a champion, right? Because you have to include them in stuff and have things for them to say and do. I don't think that's necessarily like so heinous to have two people who are part of a faction who don't have to help Bobby Lashley win. They don't make him look weaker by being part of his company or whatever it is. Like, they're just there to be the entourage, basically. That's fine. Like, there's plenty of stuff in that. So instead, they do this. They kick them out. They break them up. This is all the sort of slow breaking down of audience interest to the point where they can just go, okay, and sweep that under the rug. Off that
Under
goes
the rug
there.
you go.
So, because unless they're going to do, Cedric has now said this to Shelton. Shelton then cuts his promo later in the show. They have this feud that reignites something in Shelton, probably. I think if you were going to go with one of the two, I think Shelton seems like he's kind of being put over like the baby face here because he's, you know, the old timer who's still got one go in him. And then you can get him to go after Sheamus or someone like that. But
Yeah,
that's probably
I'd like to see...
That's an open challenge match on Raw, right? Like, he's given them out.
Yeah. I think that'd be good. Yeah, like I'd like to see them get something off the back of this, particularly Shelton, as you say, because, like, you know, as he said in the promo, he's in the prime of his life. He's still very, very young. There's still a very bright future ahead of him. We'll see where this goes, including our next gimmick change, which is Angel Garza. So the last couple of weeks, Angel Garza has been in sort of a storyline romance with Nia Jax, a kind of like love triangle with Nia Jax and Reginald, the worst thing in WWE. And that wasn't followed up on this week. Instead, Garza's walking around with a rose. Drew Gulak has a little chat with him. It's all right, are you okay?
Yeah, sorry. I was drinking water and then I laughed at you saying Reginald was the worst thing, and I had to I swallowed it funny. I swallowed it funny. Sorry.
So Drew challenges into a match, and then Garza said, "I'm going to shove this rose up your ass." They then have a match, which Garza wins fairly quickly with the wing clipper, and then legitimately shoves the rose up his ass.
It's actualization, Luke. That's what it is. It's visualization to actualization. That's what it is. Yeah, and this is again, like, you know, this is it. The company's sense of humor is 13 years old, I would say, and that's at a push. 13 years old because it's like it skirts that line between like really stupid slapstick kiddie stuff that you would see in a cartoon, and also I like sexy ladies. That's exactly like it is a 13-year-old boy, WWE, in terms of its booking. And yeah, what is this about? what does this achieve for anyone? Like, does this is this supposed to make Garza look good? He's the guy who wanted to shove a rose up someone's ass and then kick it. Is that painful?
To make Garza look good? I don't mean like there's.
Is it designed to make? Is it what's like? I don't even have the words to describe. What does this mean for Gulak? Like,
look, do you know, I'll tell you exactly what this is. It's something that's going to be on TV for 2 weeks and then it will never be brought up again. And we'll be at the end of the year. We'll be at the end of 2021, and someone will say, like, just in a hyper chat, or one of us will send a stream. Do you remember that couple of week period when Garza was putting roses up people's bums? And we're like, oh my god, yeah, that did happen, didn't it? We'll have just completely forgotten about it.
And all because Drew called him pretty boy backstage, and that drove him to acts of deprivation of which I've never seen. I think even the commentators were just like, dude, just do that. Like, there are a few times. There's a few times in this show where like the commentary team just lost all will to live. Like, there was a bit. I was going to say actually when we're talking about the Charlotte and Dana Brooke match, because it was quite slow. Like Charlotte gave Dana a lot of it, and Dana did some very slow handsprings and a sloppy looking swanton bomb, which I don't think is. I don't think it's allowed to call. They're not allowed to call it a swanton bomb. It's just that's a senton bomb. It's different. And then Charlotte puts her in the figure eight, and you can see them weighing up. Like, is it worth getting excited about this being the finish of the match? And they just went, nah. Oh, the figure eight. It's happy, and she taps. Okay, moving on. Like there is a level of like there's a level of the reality of WWE that seeps in here where like they're kind of, the show acts as if it's just dispensing of the stuff that like is like that's not important because we're actually going for this promo thing that's afterwards. The wrestling was just a way to get Charlotte out and then have all these other stuff happen. Like, so we'll just dispense with that, and the commentators won't even put it over. And it just rings so true with this. I don't know what the point of the Angel Garza thing is, but it's got to be for something, right? Because this was dispensed with such a sort of like baffling.
You say, has it got to be for something? That
you'd hope so.
No.
They're gonna keep, mate. They're gonna keep bringing it back. There's gonna be a 10-minute section for the next 3 Raws where he sticks a rose up someone's bum, and that is gonna be because it's a funny joke as far as that's concerned.
Here's the other thing as well. Is he really going up someone's bum? Because I'm thinking about this too much, apparently. But he's got a rose, right? And he puts it into Drew Gulak's pants. And then he runs against the ropes and he comes back and he kicks him in the bum. Now, I don't know if you've ever like kicked a rose. I certainly have not kicked a rose, but I have held a rose. And I would say that its structural integrity is not made of iron. So
no, that's what Beauty and the Beast was about.
Yeah, exactly. Like the second that he kicks it, it's just going to crumple. So the worst thing he's going to have is not a rose up his bum. It's just some petals in his undercarriage. And
yeah, because like the better thing, if it's got thorns on it though, Luke, does that change things? If it's like if it's a big rose covered with thorns, and then you put it in,
but he had it in his mouth. But he had it in his mouth when he was walking down to the ring, so it can't be that. Can't be, because otherwise you'd be like, crap.
See, I think the worst thing about it is obviously if the foot drapes a little bit too low, then you're just going to hit the fruits, mate. You're just going to hit the fruits. Never mind the rose, and that's going to be the painful thing. You should have just nutshotted him as hard as possible. That's what I'd be going for if I was Angel Garza.
Yeah. Anyway, next we got the best thing on the show. I love this so much. Matt Riddle does some comedy with the Viking Raiders. Genuinely quite funny stuff about American football teams and them being like Vikings and whatever. He then goes up to Randy Orton and he's just like, hey man, what a great tag team we are. And Randy's like, whoa, we've won 1 match together. Like, let's not get ahead of ourselves. We've won 1 match. And then he just sort of pauses and he thinks back to those 2 dickheads that threw some tomatoes at him earlier in the show. And he pauses. He's like, but what if we made it 2 wins? And Mara's like, yeah, that sounds great. And we then got a match with RKBro versus Elias and Ryker. Heels worked over Riddle for a bit. Orton gets the hot tag, runs in, beats them both up. And then Matt Riddle just looks at him and is like, tag me, bro. And Randy Orton looks at him and is like, I will tag you. And he tags him. He hits the draping DDT, floating bro for the win. And then like he raises hands with him. And he's not quite there to doing the pose and stuff, because Matt Riddle does his like pose on the knee. And we're just waiting for that moment when Randy does like the arms above him and they have like their team pose. But I genuinely love this.
I will say that this is just the Broserweights.
Oh yeah, 100%.
3.0. And the reason it works is because it's already worked before. So they just it's a shot for shot remake, Luke, with they've recast Pete Dunne as Randy Orton, and they're just doing it again. It's really fun. It is really funny
in one division.
Yeah, exactly. It's funny though. Like I like the kind of like I think Riddle's really good with this kind of like. He's got that kind of like childish glimmer when he goes like, hey, bro. And Randy's like, I'm not your bro. And he's like, yeah, well, it's sort of a metaphorical thing. And I think we're sort of like bros on that level. And he reels off all this stuff like he's like an overexcited kid. Like the Viking Raiders stuff was really funny. Like, and the tag team's good and they're getting wins and they get like, it was efficient. It was definitely in a very efficient match to sort of put them over. But I can see like, RKBro versus AJ and Omos down the line.
Same here.
Like I can massively see that, and I would really enjoy that. So yeah, I think that's exciting, and I think that this is one of those ones where 2 guys have been thrown together because they haven't got much else on, and it really works, which is rare for WWE.
The report is like this was Randy's request because he wanted to work with Matt Riddle because the plan was he was supposed to be working with Braun Strowman, and he was like, nope, don't fancy that much. So instead, he's been put into a feud with Matt Riddle instead. And that is like, and I think that's almost like a reward for Randy Orton because the Fiend thing, according to reports, was just an absolute disaster from day one, where the company did not know what the creative direction for it was. So Randy was just massively frustrated because he's showing up for TV every week, being like, what am I doing? They're like, we don't know. And he's like, what am I doing next week? We don't know. What am I doing at WrestleMania? We don't know. So now he's like, this is almost like a reward for him. It's like, we're very sorry that we put you through that where we had no idea what was going on and we made it up as we went along. Do you want to work with Matt Riddle? It's like, yeah, I do. That's exactly what I want to do. And it's like, brilliant. Well, you're going to have fun with this tag team. And you can tell that Randy Orton is into this because he's trying. And it's nice on May the 4th. May the 4th be with you all. Because do or do not, there is no try. And he is doing it well. And he's actually putting effort forth. And you can see that. And that is why, like, this is good. He was so bored in the Fiend versus Orton. Like, it was so done with this. Here, it's a completely invigorated Randy Orton. And that's wonderful to see.
It's also because, this, they've done it all before in NXT. They could also just be like, can you just watch NXT from 2 weeks ago and see what Killian Dane and Drake Maverick are doing? Because that's what you're also doing. You're Killian Dane in this, by the way, Randy. But like, it's a good gimmick to have, like, because he gets to maintain the Randy Orton mystique, and it doesn't like he just gets to be the Randy Orton character, which he's so comfortable being. And I think the Fiend stuff was pulling him in a direction that, like, Randy Orton's not a mystical character. And he has to operate in this kind of mystical arena and be like, am I scared of this? Because I don't think Randy Orton would be scared of this. Randy Orton's not necessarily a scared guy, but then he has to kind of act sort of scared, and like it's all dragging him out of character. Whereas here, you just get to be Randy Orton, and Matt Riddle will just do comedy while riding a scooter around you.
Yeah.
What more could you want? I love the lock and key thing was funny, where he's like, shush, and then he took it and he was like, I'll keep that. Good little bits of stuff. I really like it. The moment he does the pose with him, it's going to be big.
I love it. Drew cut a promo with Kayla Braxton. Didn't really have much to say, just talking about T-Bar and Mace. And then Sheamus and Mansoor had a match. Now, we were set up for something to be pretty good here. It's Mansoor's debut. He's going up against Sheamus, who is the United States champion. It's kind of like, this will be a great showing for him. He doesn't have to win the match, doesn't have to win the title. It could just be a very good showing for him. Do you know what isn't a good idea? Giving him a DQ loss in his opening go and then have Sheamus lay him out afterwards. That does not inspire me with confidence for a main roster run.
No, but I mean, they're going back to Saudi at some point this year, aren't they? So
we need to bring Mansoor to the main roster.
My most cynical head says that. Yeah, they will, because they'll be like, we can play a package of him having these matches. Like he fought for the Universal title, blah blah blah.
Just
blah.
Play the old ones. Just play the old videos that you've done before.
Not good enough, Luke. They've seen them before. You need to razzle the crowd. Yeah, exactly. I liked the small bit of this that was the match. Like I thought that Mansoor got to show some good spirit against Sheamus. He got to like the bit where he got he took the beats to the bodhrán and he got the military press onto the barricade and he just beats the count. But there's that shot of his face as he's focused on the apron, and you can just see that he's like trying so hard to make it back in the ring and he won't give up. All of that stuff really sold Mansoor as a character, and I thought did really great work. But yeah, you're right that Korea running down, getting involved, giving Mansoor a loss, and then both of them just get bro kicked. What does it do for anyone? Like beyond, obviously leaves the door open for Mansoor to say, well, actually, you ruined my match, so I want a rematch with Sheamus. But what they're actually going to do is, you ruined my match, Carrillo, so I'm going to have a match with you. Two people who took bro kicks to the face. So
or it's a triple
get excited, WWE Universe.
Well, there's a triple threat at Backlash between two guys that Sheamus laid out single-handedly quite easily.
Oh my god!
Like none of it.
Backlash is just going to be the triple threat show.
It may as well be.
Do you think they're just going to make that the?
Do you remember that pay-per-view, Fatal 4-Way, where every match was a Fatal 4-Way? Like we may as well just make this triple threat, and every match is a triple threat match. May as well do at this point.
Good.
Maybe you could do that for the women's tag match. We'll get to that.
Everything ends with a double stacked pin. That's what happens. This is how we make dominant champions.
Alexa Bliss cut a promo as well. So they were doing this gimmick, like what they did with the Fiend early doors as well, or the Firefly Funhouse, where they used to have the puppets in the backgrounds. She kind of said, I didn't realize this until she mentioned it here, and then I saw people post about it on Twitter. But like the Lily puppet was behind Sonya Deville at one point, and it was behind Gulak and Angel Garza at one point as well. So she said like, Lily's a big WWE fan and she wanted to go meet the people and do the wrestle and whatever. And she's like, someone has caught her eye, which presumably would be Sonya Deville. And yeah, then she does like, pretty much the same promo that she's done since turning heel. I get why they keep putting her on TV. It's just to make sure that you'll remember that she's there and she's a good promo and things like that. And people really, really dig it. Plus you can do like the Lily, like little bite thing that it does at the end, which they love. but she is spinning wheels at the moment. I'm looking for this to go somewhere. And I feel like this is probably the first promo where it feels like it may go somewhere, because she at least, one would presume that she's going after Sonya Deville, which may mean she might be going after Flair. Like this does need to start moving. Otherwise, we're in the situation of Aleister Black sitting in the cupboard waiting for people to knock on the door. And they're not exactly. Yeah. And like it was a gimmick that went nowhere. And I don't want this to be a gimmick that just goes nowhere.
Yeah, I agree. I can see why it goes on TV every week, because I think Alexa Bliss she's really good at acting it. She sells it so well. Like her facial expressions, the sort of mode switching between like deranged maniacal cackling and frightened little girl back to like kind of this creepy stare out thing. Like she does all of that really brilliantly. But yeah, I just want it to mean something, and I want to know what it means in regards to Bray Wyatt. Like, why is that not? Why are we not addressing this properly?
That was done. Like, I think they just said on TV a few weeks back, we're done now, and like, so there is no payoff to any of that stuff. There apparently is just going to be no payoff to it whatsoever, because Alexa Bliss isn't addressing it in the promos anymore. She is not talking about the Fiend. She has gone solo from him. We haven't seen Bray since the Raw after Mania. We haven't, so he's been off TV for a long time. So one would presume that is just done and dusted now, and there's going to be no payoff to it whatsoever. And poor Bray, I guess, poor Fiend. I need this show. You need to drip feed us information to at least tell us this is where we're heading, right?
What does the dolly want, Alexa?
Well, exactly,
what does the dolly want?
So like I've only just started watching Game of Thrones, right? Like I've got my finger on the pulse, so like I know what people are into at the moment. So I'm watching Game of Thrones. Like I'm now at the point of series 3 or 4 or something or other. But like I was texting Ollie about this the other day, and I was like, man, if this whole series is just going to be the Dragon Lady dicking around in other areas that isn't connected to anyone else and just like really just spinning her wheels and not doing anything, then that's not going to make from City great television and actually become quite frustrating. And he was like, oh yeah, I mean, pretty much that is what happens. And that's a problem, right? But at least I know what her end goal is. I know her end goal is to get to King's Landing and take the Iron Throne, right?
Yeah.
But with Alexa Bliss, she is just spinning her wheels there, and I do not know what her wants and needs are. She is just saying things and doing nothing. So you can do nothing in your promos. You can just cut these promos as long as we, the audience, know there is an end goal, and we are going to get, and we are working our way to that end goal.
I think the problem is as well, because they're acting like it's some great mystery what Lily wants in the manipulation of Alexa Bliss, but it isn't, because creepy puppet who controls people is like the most one-note trope of horror going, really. And it's like, and that's fine, but that's why you lean on something like that, because it's simple to understand. There's a wealth of backlog of like documentation and movies that people can draw from to fill in the blanks of like, well, the puppet clearly is this thing and it wants this, and it's going to drive someone to do that. But like the kind of slow, like she's revealing all these small bits of story of like, Lily was my friend from when I was a child, and now she's looking at people, and it's like, why are we getting all of this piecemeal? Like, we understood what it was weeks ago, so move on, because it's not, you're not adding anything to the conversation by spending 5 minutes every week having Alexa Bliss basically cut word for word the same promo to then just reveal the title. Like, you know, it's like when they do the Monster of the Week episode of your Buffy the Vampire Slayer, your Supernatural, to get to the end point where the last 5 minutes is like, and here's the overarching story. It's like, that's what I was here for. Thank you very much. Yeah, the rest of this was fine, but I wanted that bit that advanced what we were doing. So yeah, this is just that. I mean, I guess then it's also true to horror fiction as well, because Buffy and Supernatural are pretty good. So there you are.
Yeah. Naomi and Lana took on Nia Jax and Shayna Baszler. This went 2 minutes, and it was mostly no good, and the heels won. Who could possibly care? Honest to goodness, who could possibly care? Like Anonymous in a Hyperchat that said, fun fact, according to Wikipedia, Nia Jax first put Lana through a table on September 14th. And that means this feud has been going on for 8 months. Lana has also had 3 different tag team partners in that period: Asuka, Natalya, and Naomi.
Wow.
Yeah.
This is, I mean, my main note here in all caps is load of old S word. So yeah, it hurts my heart every single time I watch Shayna Baszler involved in this stuff, because it's just, it is such a monumental waste. It's just unbelievable. And also because she's now continually the foil. Like, you know, she's the one, like, while Nia Jax is looking the wrong way, it's Shayna Baszler being rolled up and double face busted and beat up by Lana to only get the Kirifuda clutch at the end or whatever. Like, it's nonsense.
Yeah.
Like, and then to also have the the tag team titles again being defended on TV
against this team,
for a joke. It is what a waste of hardware. What a waste of money to even make the belts in the first place. If this is what,
and do you know how this match was set up? Nia Jax and Shayna Baszler beat them last week, and off the back of them beating them last week in a 6-man tag, they got a women's tag title match out of it. That in itself makes absolutely no effing sense whatsoever. And then you promote this on TV, you promote it throughout the night for 2 minutes worth of in-ring action that accomplished absolutely nothing. So what was the point? Gone.
No, sorry. Again, I agree. And again, it's that thing. We know where this is going. This is going to Jakson Baszler eventually having a feud, isn't it? Like,
well, I'd hope.
That has to be where it's going, because that's what the kind of discrepancy in the team is about that they've sort of teased. So, like, you would assume that is where it's going to end up. Get there. Because this team needs to go away.
It needs to get right in the bin.
If you have no ideas for it, get rid of it.
Yeah, get it in the bin and put that bin in the sea. MVP cut his 4th and final promo, and then we got our main events of Braun Strowman versus Bobby Lashley. Wasn't much of a match, actually quite bad. And Drew McIntyre caused a distraction at the end because, of course, you need a distraction finish, and Bobby beat Braun. What a great way to build a pay-per-view by having... Yeah, I was not a fan of the... Don't book this match. It's a very simple solution. Do not book this match to lead into the pay-per-view. Try and make all 3 of them look good, as opposed to making one of them lose. And now we're setting up a match next week where one of them could lose again, or we'll just get a bollocks DQ finish. That doesn't inspire me to watch either.
Do you know what? I think to spend the whole show building this match with MVP promos and re-referencing the last time these two faced off and tore the place up with that crazy, like, going through the stage thing, to then just do a distraction finish it takes some balls to do. It takes some absolute cojones to do that, Luke. To be like, look at what happened the last time these two. And this is the thing, is like, they could have done a replay, like a shot-for-shot remake of that moment where they went through the Titantron, basically, like, because that would have been brilliant. Like, the idea that Braun Strowman and Bobby Lashley, what Drew wants from them is for them to tear each other apart, right? The thing that Drew didn't do at all in this show is rile either one up about the other one, which is what Drew should have been. The clever game to play in this episode would have been having Drew turning up in all these umpteen MVP promos and being like, but Braun was saying this about you, Bobby. Going to Braun and being like in his language that he speaks, and then getting him to, like, going after Bobby. Then when they collide at the match and they go through the stage, Drew sat there bloody laughing because he's just made them do it because he's clever. And then you can have Bobby Lashley walk out like nothing's wrong, and then you get some stakes for next week because Drew's looking at him like, how the hell did you survive that? What did this do for anyone? What did this do?
Well, that's the problem with Raw, is that, like, nothing accomplishes anything. So it's just stuff happens, and it's 3 hours, and I watch it every week, and it's 3 hours, and it's so long, and nothing ever gets achieved, and it's not a good show.
I think the problem is there's a reliance on things that are safe, and I think people were very willing to, in the early stage of the pandemic, especially, to be like, well, it's okay because we don't know what's happening. Like, no one knows when the world's going to get better. No one knows when, like, things are going to change. So spinning your wheels is fine. But WWE has been basically spinning its wheels for most of a year in a lot of its storylines. You know, I feel like Roman Reigns is the only thing that has advanced and told a story that has evolved over time. So here we are, a year later, and WWE is still spinning its wheels, not really knowing what it's doing, and still relying on the same 3 matchups to hold a 3-hour show together. It's not good enough anymore. It's not good enough to do that. And like, yeah, you know, and it's weird as well, because to go back to the well, one is a thing that WWE say all the time whenever they're like, anyone's made a mistake. You went to the well too many times. And it's like, well, you are now your own bit of commentary. But going back to the well is fine if it's safe and it's good to do. And it's weird to flag up things that would have worked on this show in the show and then not do them. To like show you a much better version of Bobby Lashley versus Braun Strowman and then actively choose to not do that.
Yeah.
As I said before, takes some great big grapes, doesn't it? Whoa.
And the worst thing is, this was one of the better shows they've done in recent times. Like, genuinely, it was better than most of the Raws that have been since WrestleMania, and up until leading into WrestleMania as well. So good job, WWE. This was not the worst show you've put on. So in that sense, I give it a 2 out of 5 thumbs up.
I mean, the thing is, Luke, the one thing I will say is that the worse WWE's build and booking has been, the better their pay-per-views have been recently. So here's fingers crossed for WrestleMania Backlash. It could be the one. Could be bloody good.
Yeah. And I like this comment from Lucas that said, imagine watching Game of Thrones in 2021. I don't have to imagine, mate. I am doing it. And it's totally fine. As in, like, the show itself. Like, I know a lot of people were like, oh, you're going to get so angry at the end. I don't think I can do, because I don't care enough. So, like, you do get angry by the end of it. Let's get into the rest of your hyper chats. Gamma S says, this company has the perfect women for the sexy woman role on NXT and could do everything this role needs at an exceptional level. Scarlett Bordeaux did this gimmick already. Very true. Yeah, she did it in Impact Wrestling. And she did it the best, I think. Jam that jam. May the 4th be with you. That's a very, very good point there. Johnny R says, welcome to the devolution. Feels like WWE is going in reverse with the women. What was worse, late 29 Super Cena era WWE or this current product? Great question. God, that is a good question. What is worse? I feel like I want to say 2009 is worse. Yeah, I'm going to say 2009 was worse than this.
There have been glimmers in this of like good stuff. 2009 was basically knowing why things are dying and just watching it happen. I mean,
in slow motion.
This is bad, but there is also SmackDown happening at the same time, which is
it's a good show.
Yeah.
Rangers Mayhem said, remember when everyone went after AEW for their treatment of the women's division, saw that Eva promo and turned off Raw? AEW Dark Elevation better than Raw Evolution. I see there. HCP said, the only way I'm happy with Eva Marie returning is if she brings back the announcer guy she had on SmackDown in 2016. Can't wait for her to play the beauty narcissist character like Mandy Rose and Dana Brooke, except she's a heel while they're faces. WWE sense. Actually, it's a good point. I forgot that Mandy Rose did this gimmick as well. Mandy.
Bring back the Vaseline.
I was going to say, with the Vaseline thing, I forgot she did this gimmick. Dean Barretton said, this will upset a few, but the Eva gimmick is designed for models, cheerleaders, and Sable, not wrestlers. If WWE wants to do a sexy woman gimmick, then go and get a glamour model. Keep wrestlers who can wrestle. Joke how they treated Mickey. And Mark said, I hate the Shayna's tag feud so much. I'm prepared to see her put over Eva Marie. Get out of the tag team division. And on the subject of Damien Priest, Leon Quashi said, Priest cannot escape the mid-card of evil. Thoughts and prayers. Getting hard to root for NXT, guys. You know, if they get 2 over, they'll just be punted next to the MR and saddled with a name character. Oh, punched up to the main roster and saddled with the name characters, repetitive matches. Rhea looks to be next. I'll hot tag over to you for some super chats.
On the subject of Raw equals bad, Greg Murphy says, the biggest indictment of Raw is that despite their claims, it is missable. There is no sense of anything can happen or must-see TV. I would skim Raw most weeks, but now not even that. You miss nothing if you don't watch, whereas SmackDown feels must-see. I'll say as someone who, generally speaking, reads the reviews, watches the YouTube clips, and then watches the full stuff of things that I'm actually interested in, that feels quite pertinent about Raw. Raw, I quite often watch SmackDown when I'm doing stuff. I don't often watch Raw. Edward Burke says, how much do we need to get Patreon for you guys to stop watching Raw? It clearly hurts you when we care about you. Review classic Raw instead. Review bad Nitro. Hell, review Lucha Underground retrospectively. Just stop hurting yourselves.
That will be fine. The show will get good eventually.
Yeah, they'll write books about us in psychology departments. It'll be fun. Eric Defton.
Sorry, at this point here, like Sean said this on a Fightful review a couple of weeks ago, but at this point, we're just playing the long game. We're just trying to be the last people standing. Because really, at this point, it's us. Sean and Denise and Stephen Larson are pretty much the only people that are still reviewing this show. We're just going to be the last people standing. We will win this war.
Yeah, well, tens of viewers will get, Luke. Tens of viewers. Eric Defcon Prime de Riggy says, WWE equals we won't entertain. Keith Kutak says, do you think WWE is keeping in mind its new viewers more than worrying about maintaining its lineage of long-term fans? With things like evolution being a thing now, what do you think new fans think of the current day product? Are they really impressed?
I don't know if like bringing Eva Marie back is for the lineage of long-term fans. I mean, maybe it is. Are there like diehard Eva Marie fans that are just like are now going to tune back into the product now that she's here?
I don't think so. I think like anyone who's a long-term fan, like you said, would have pointed out that this is the third person to do this gimmick in a year. Yeah. Like really, I think this is the thing. Like nothing they're doing is for long-term fans. I think everything they're doing is for themselves in that sense of this is what's worked previously. So we'll just keep hammering that and not innovate. Whereas I think other people are at least, well, AEW is half innovating, half just resurrecting old WCW stuff, but that's a nice mix. Edward Burke says, if WWE makes movies, then Vince and Dunn are Tommy Wiseau.
I mean, in fairness to them, like a lot of Raw backstage segments are just people going, "Oh, hi, Mark," and just like,
yeah. I can't wait for the day they're watching the TV side on and it's just pictures of spoons. Mary Death McChaos says, I've watched WWE for years, but after the last few years, I've given up on watching Raw. From now on, I'll just watch your reviews. At least I can still enjoy watching SmackDown. Makes sense. Blimmin' hell, the Roman Reigns versus Daniel Bryan match was a scorcher. El Scorchio. Oh, that was so good. I wish we were talking about that. Keith Kutak again says, hey again, lads. What do you guys think will be WWE's breaking point to shift into a better product as a whole? A certain match or a new godlike Rock/Stone Cold character, or a complete upheaval and overhaul of everything from the ground up? # jam that jam.
I think the breaking point will be if no network wants to renew them.
Yeah. They're big. They're holding out for a Rock and a Stone Cold. That's what they think. That's what they think they're doing. They're looking for that because that's all they know how to do. They've never known how to necessarily have a fully rounded roster of talent that is amazing. They've always relied heavily on 3 or 4 guys who they know draw eyes. That has always been the way of WWE. So like like a complete overhaul and upheaval would be what they need. It would be something quite similar to, I guess, what an NXT has done, where you can see that the different bits of the card are functioning at different levels. Like you can see that this person here is on the way up and this person here is the top of the card and they're the draw. But that does take tearing it all down and starting again, which I imagine will happen at some point, but it's a wait and see game.
I genuinely think it's a case of like, if they try to, if they don't renegotiate with Fox and they're trying to go to like, Brandon Thurston was talking about like them negotiating with Apple and Amazon. If Apple and Amazon don't want them or Fox don't want them and they can't find a network, then maybe like, whoa, maybe we do need to restructure things then. Like that's what's going to be the break point. Or like a load of investors drop out. It's not going to be fans stopping watching. Or fans stopping. Like that's not what's going to stop this. It's going to be board executives in suits making decisions and be what changes things.
Do you know? And also, if they do get a big off deal like the Fox one, but everyone turns around and says, "But we want the product to be like this," then they'll do that as well. Like they changed up who was the champion, etc., for the start of the Fox era. But like, totally, most TV executives know the show is the show is, like, rather than being like, this is what we want. But if someone did offer them a hell of a lot of money and said, could you please change it to this, that'd happen. Jay Gupta says, as a wrestling fan, I tried to fall in love with Raw, then got angry. Now I've just given up. When AEW's dark elevation has better stories and matches than Raw, you just know the show is not worth your emotions or time. Appreciate your work, guys. #JTJ. That is completely right. Do you want to take back over?
I will do, yeah. On the subject of The Fiend, SMB says, where do you two think The Fiend has gone? It seems his gimmick is have a big hyped return, lose, then go away. Oh my God. So true. But they've just not given the gimmick to Bliss, which has only worked with them when they're both together. I hate Raw at the moment. Nothing makes sense. Nothing matters. SMB, you answered your own question. That is what happened to The Fiend. They brought him back. They did the big old return. And then they just stopped doing the burnt thing because he just magicking himself back to being normal. Then Randy Orton beat him. And then that was it. That's where he's gone.
He needs an evolution. They're going to do another thing now. They're going to be like, here's a new mask or whatever. You can sell a new toy then, can't you? If he's got a new outfit, they can sell a new toy. So that's what they'll do.
Chris Perez says, where is The Fiend? Is he officially dead? Seriously, WTF, has there been any news behind the scenes on him? I don't think there has been, actually. There's been no reports whatsoever about, what the plan is. Leon Quashi says, wasn't Mansoor on some Goldberg-level winning streak across main event 205 Live in the Saudi shows? I'm no booking savant, but this seemed like a good opportunity to 1-2-3 kid him. Sheamus even said the match wasn't for the title. Oh, well, needs more DQ. You're right, he was actually on a 49-0 winning streak ahead of debuting on Raw tonight. So this could have been win number 50 for him. You could have made something out of that. Nope, DQ loss. Darren Lloyd said, so after they could just play it, I'm like, well, it's not been pinned. Darren Lloyd, so after the triple threat announcement, Sonya tells Adam Pearce, it was a last minute decision. Couldn't find you, so I sent a text. So what are Adam and Sonya doing in the office after Flair left and Adam walked in 10 minutes earlier? Yep. Because this is a bad production. Sadie6969, hey guys, hope you're having a great day. Love Raw being the most boring, trashy version of Groundhog Day. Although I did enjoy seeing AJ and Omos back again. Women's wrestling is the best. WWE just sucks eggs. #El Fagador is the coolest. MD Iago said, do you think that now we love Roman Reigns, they'll bring him to Raw in the next draft to increase ratings, overexposing him again? It wouldn't be shove him down our throats. It would be giving us what we want. Hate that. Sing, Luke, sing. Love that. No, I think they're going to keep him on SmackDown because that's the golden goose at the moment. That's the one you want the good ratings, so you can sell that on. And Nate S says, Garza put a rose up Gulak's butt. Did Gulak at least scream, my hole? I could at least had a tie-in with the Nia Jax stuff. Maybe that's his gimmicks now to try and entice Nia. This company.
That's a missed opportunity right there.
Oh, yeah. We'll run through these last ones we got here. Nate S. said, I remember just last week during the parlay when Luke said, oh, they're going to decide the advantage of blood and guts by coin flip. That's so lame. A coin flip. Bezo Banks said, I mean, I would say Blood and Guts was way worse because that's like war games. This is just a throwaway match on Raw. Beto Banks said, couldn't even care to talk about Raw, so let's talk about something else that doesn't make sense. WWE actively has a Star Wars actor in Sasha Banks in their roster and can't promote that she's on it on SmackDown, not even on May the 4th on their socials. It's a fairly good point. I wonder if they even know. 2912 says, sorry guys, I'm unsubscribing. Keeping up with WWE just makes me sad. Love what you do. I'll stick around for PFK and Quizlemania, but I'm done with current events. Purged my YouTube and socials of all WWE related content. Perfectly fine. Totally understandable. Thank you for letting us know. Vandalia in 1998 with Laurie fighting to keep the Jam That Championship at WrestleMania Backlash. WrestleJamia Back Jam. Maybe the Raw review team could do a prediction show with the SmackDown review team to see who gets to review SmackDown or Raw, since Raw is giving you a headache. Vandalia, it's a great argument. I'm not working Saturdays. I've got things to do on a Saturday. Luke
would rather bully himself on a Tuesday
totally
than work on a Saturday.
Chris Baldwin, hey guys, hope you're both having a great day. I got my first tattoo yesterday and they had Raw on the TV, so I immediately asked if I could switch the channel. FTF, Jam That Jam. Misha says, message for producer Rich. When is the 1 hour loop of Luke doing the SmackDown theme getting posted? Release the Owen cut. Misha, it already exists. Editor Vinny posted that onto his own channel. So yeah, if you just search for probably Luke sings SmackDown theme for an hour, you will find it. iHacks said, Nick Khan, no relation to Tony. Luke should do the news more often. When is Ollie coming back with his new hair, by the way? Can't wait to see how it looks. I mean, iHacks, it might take a little while, because he was shaved completely bald. He isn't going to be back on Wednesday, as we thought, because his recovery time is a little bit longer than perhaps anticipated. So I'll be doing the news for the rest of this week. He may be back next week, but we're going to play it by ear, though. We need to let him rest up. Chocobo Kid said, lovely time with the boys, and I jam that champion. Charles Berg. So Charles Berg, if you're not aware, doesn't want to review Raw. Instead, he wants to review dogs. And so he is sending in his paw review, P-A-W. Ralph is a Maltese and Yorkshire Terrier mix, a Morkie. It's a super sweet dog who's positive. He's a big boy. He loves running fast in circles and getting butt scratches. Nicknames, Ralphie Boy, Ralph Alpha, Sprout Ralphus. I sent you a pic, and here is that pic. There he is. There's the dog.
Oh, that's a cute dog.
There's a very nice dog. And Edward Burke said, "This may be better than your is. This may be better for your is Bray Wyatt actually good, but I think the problem is that Wyndham Rotunda is too good at rebuilding himself. This company think they can pile anything that they want onto him, and you can cut one good promo and be good again. It's not a bad shout." And lastly, Dean Brenton said, "When you said a Fiend evolution, you don't mean he's going to come and sit on a car in a bikini, do you?"
I think that's brilliant. It's avant-garde. It's different. It's
you wouldn't see it coming.
It's
People want surprises. Well, that is all we have got time for on this edition of the WrestleTalk Podcast. Thank you all so much for joining us. We'll be back tomorrow with the NXT review with Pete and Tempest, the Intangibles, and potentially live reactions to AEW Blood and Guts. I haven't quite decided, mainly because I haven't had a conversation with my wife yet about whether she'd be asked if I did it. But I will have that conversation at some point. But yeah, so we may do that tomorrow as well. And then on Thursday, I'll be doing the AEW review, potentially with Laurie Blake, potentially with a special guest. And then on Friday, me and Denise will be back once again to do the magazine show with your Patreon questions. And then the Intangibles are on Saturday, reviewing SmackDown, packed odd week as per usual. I've been Luke Owen. That has been your Jam That Champion, Alfactor Laurie Blake. Thank you all so much for watching. Take care, everyone. I love you. Goodbye. There he is. There's the champion.
There it is. I've got it.
Jam that jam, everyone. Jam it all. Looking after it. It's yours. You're not going to lose that to Louis.
No, I didn't mean it was just on. I didn't mean it was just on the floor under a load of stuff.